Since the last ARCA video I did made the rounds in a lot of places, I decided it would be best to do a follow-up. Based on the like to dislike ratio and the comments from the previous video, it's safe to say that a lot of fans agree with my frustrations. As for the industry, however, that's a totally different story. There were some within the ARCA industry who voiced their frustrations very loudly with me on social media, and it's understandable. You gotta remember, these are people's livelihoods. When you discuss something about the industry that isn't the most positive, you're bound to get these reactions. Now, I wanted to do a follow-up video because one of the criticisms that I thought was fair was in the previous video, I didn't offer any sort of solutions. Nor did I say too many positive things about it, but the whole point of that video was to get my bent-up frustrations out there. If you watch back on the video again, I don't think I said anything brand new that fans weren't already thinking. There are other YouTubers as well as media personalities within the motorsports world that have been far more critical about ARCA than I have. But in some cases, I don't think it was the message that people had a problem with, more so the messenger. Because of life, I had to push the follow-up video back a couple of times, and oh boy, of all the weeks I decided to do it, it just so happened to be on the week that I landed this recent gig. As some of y'all know, I've done PA and social media work in the past for multiple short tracks. This will be a brand new one. And it's really proof that there are some fans out there who have no clue how the industry works. They immediately see this announcement and think, how can ARCA give him an opportunity? Well, they didn't. I was requested to do PA work because of my resume at other tracks, not because of my YouTube channel. And also, takes like these are just insanely bad. Just because you're critical of something doesn't mean you hate it. But enough of all of that, let's get down to the nitty-gritty. What does the future hold for ARCA? One correction I need to make is when ARCA was acquired by NASCAR in 2018, it wasn't for financial reasons. I looked up multiple articles talking about ARCA, and in one of them they had mentioned this. I should have verified that better. The reason ARCA was sold to NASCAR was because the previous owners wanted to see the series have long-term stability. The series certainly has a chance at getting better under the NASCAR umbrella. They're not just gonna buy something and let it wither and die. ARCA has always been the so-called de facto series for NASCAR, a platform for younger drivers to develop their skills and hopefully move up the NASCAR ladder. The problem with today's development is there aren't too many competitive veterans. Gone are the days of racing competitive veterans such as Frank Kimmel. If you wanted to move up the stock car ladder back in those days, you had to prove in ARCA that you could beat Frank Kimmel first. You have veterans in the series, but they're just not in the most competitive equipment. You have drivers such as Greg Van Alst and Brad Smith with a ton of racing experience, but they're not consistent frontrunners. We need more competitive veterans again. Really, in general, the series needs more competitive racing on some of these tracks. In my opinion, the ARCA West series currently has the best racing in all of ARCA. As for the Big ARCA and ARCA East series, while they do have some decent races, some of them can be snoozers. And I know it looks really bad on paper to have less competitive fields, but when you add in more context, such as how a lot of these teams have volunteer guys working on them, as well as ARCA not having the best payouts in the world, you can see why that competitive unbalance is there. The payouts aren't enough to make a profit for some of these teams, and really the operating expenses are just way too high. On speedways that are greater than 1 mile, the winner's payout is usually around $10,000. For dirt tracks, as well as some intermediates and short tracks, the winner's payout is sometimes around $6,000, and for almost all short tracks, the payout is around $5,000. Daytona had the highest payout for the winner, being $17,500, but that's just for the race winners. A lot of these smaller guys, even in payout, get roughly under $2,000 a race, even on the big tracks. Let me put it to you like this. From what one of the ARCA crew guys had told me, a set of 4 sticker tires can cost anywhere between $1,900 to $2,500, and a brand new Ilmor motor costs $35,000. So the smaller teams are forced to run legacy engines that are roughly $15,000. This is why you see some ARCA races that are so strung out. ARCA, without a doubt, needs to up the pay or find a way to reduce the cost of racing. As a result, the smaller teams are suffering, and you have some aspiring drivers who would love to move up the ladder, but simply don't stand a chance because they don't bring a big-time sponsor. After finding out what some of the costs are to race in ARCA, I was thinking, how much of the TV money do these teams get? From what I was told, their TV deal doesn't work that way, and they don't get TV money in that sense. I don't know when the next TV deal is for them, but that should certainly be looked into. Could you imagine if some of these smaller teams got a little bit of that television money? It would certainly help them out to run more competitive cars and hire better driver talent. But also, the most important factor, these veterans would have way more competitive machinery, and they would be able to race with the youngsters. And if they're able to race with them up front, maybe these young drivers can learn a thing or two. And I'm not saying they're not learning anything at all currently, but when you watch some of these races and the highlights, you have to question what the point of the series is sometimes. On the flip side, there's definitely improvements that are being made slowly but surely. Statistically, in all but 2 races this season, we have seen an increase in car counts, with these fields being 20 cars or more. You can definitely credit the current ARCA series president Ron Drager for these improvements. He knows that ARCA is meant to be a development series for aspiring drivers, crew chiefs, and crew members. He seems to be well liked around the series as a whole, so I feel like if NASCAR keeps letting him be in charge, the series definitely has a chance to get better. We're still quite a ways away from what ARCA used to be. It was a lot easier to get into the ARCA series back in the late 2000s. ARCA transitioned to all composite bodies in 2020, and while some fans have pointed to that as being the root of the problem, I think the real problem is that the operating expenses are just simply too high. If the series can somehow get the costs down on a consistent basis year by year, you'll be able to see more competitive races. You'll be able to see more talented drivers from veterans and rookies alike. I think what would help out a lot in this situation is somehow restructuring the TV deal to where these teams get some money. I'm not saying they need to get the same amount that these Cup Series teams currently have, but wouldn't it help out a lot for these smaller teams if they got just a tiny portion of it? In my opinion, I still think the series definitely has a shot at getting better under the NASCAR umbrella, but they are still a ways off from what they used to be. They still have that grassroots feel, they still have an awesome schedule of short tracks, but if they can figure out a way to help cut the operating costs down a tad, then you will start to see a better series overall. Look, I've said my 2 cents on the situation already. I have said what solutions I think there are to help some of these issues, but what do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments below what you think the future holds for ARCA. Let me know what your thoughts on the follow-up video are, and what are your solutions to helping improve the series. Once again, don't forget, me and IDK Player will be at Salem Speedway on Saturday, October 1st, doing PA work for the track. And if you happen to be in the industry and see me, don't be afraid to say hello, and if you want to discuss more thoughts on the matter, then we can do that. Now it's time to sit back and see what type of reactions this ARCA video will get. And once again, that'll do it for another video. Thank you guys so much for watching. This is Black Flags Matter. Catch you next time.